Go.
Hey everyone, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and
I'm Chris.
he is Chris indeed, and we are here to talk about the running backs 1 through 12, and that's how they finished this season. I would like to throw out some scoring format that we are using half PPR. We decided on that because it kind of bridges that gap between full PPR and non PPR. And it's actually becoming a pretty popular scoring format
It's
for people to
becoming
use.
standard practically.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of down with it, to be honest. It's not as easy to like do the math in my head when I'm sitting there at a bar watching the ticker, the stat ticker.
Fair.
Not that I did that this year at all, but hey, my brain can use a little exercise, right?
Sure, absolutely.
We're Amazing Fantasy Football.
One little wrinkle in the scoring format, and I think it shows itself later, which would be a different show. My apologies, but I think special teams yards are counted, so that's just worth mentioning.
Oh, that is true, and you will see that in some of these slides that we are going to throw up here. I really like to give that extra little bump of special teams points. If I was in a 16 team league, I would definitely be like, we should definitely do this, because then a guy like Deontay Harris,
a little bit more
who doesn't
value.
really get a lot of receiving work, but becomes a little bit more relevant in a league that needs all the relevant players it can get.
Exactly.
You can make the argument if that's the challenge of playing in a 16 team league, but still, you know what I'm saying, man. Right?
But on the other hand, I mean, what's punts have kind of been really nerfed a lot in the real NFL, so on one hand you're getting a little extra something, on the other hand you're not getting a ton, is what all I'm saying.
Right.
Onward and upward.
So yeah, we're Amazing Fantasy Football once again. You can let's start this off at the top here, and we'll say it again in the bottom.
Plug.
We have started a Discord server to kind of try and build a community. It's still really small right now, but the group of people that we do have are really solid folk. You can email us at amazingffb@gmail.com. That is amazingffb@gmail.com, in case you didn't know how to spell amazing. Hey, there's some bad spellers out there, right?
There are. I may or may not be one of them. I cannot confirm or deny that.
I am a very competent speller. I am not going to be winning any B's, but hey, but I mean, dude, those kids on those spelling bees are freaking amazing.
They are.
There's just some of those words I'm like, you made that up, and no, they didn't.
Quick interlude: the movie Bad Words with Jason Bateman. Awesome movie. It's about spelling bees.
I do like me some Jason Bateman.
Oh, I love Bateman. Love it.
How can you not like Jason Bateman?
I agree. I completely agree.
I would love if Jason Bateman was just like a total party animal, but I don't think he is. I think he's just a family guy.
He's a dad, dude.
I think he's just. He's just a genuinely nice guy. It's crazy.
He's awesome and great at being a smart aleck, like unprecedented level of smart aleckness. Yep.
Yeah.
I went there.
I like that he's like a pseudo villainous person in what's that show? Ozark.
Oh,
like he's definitely not a good guy.
Yeah, pseudo villainous. Yeah, it's putting it nicely.
Definitely not a good guy.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any good or evil in that show. There's just craziness. But yeah,
there are just degrees of awful people in that show.
I love how good that show is,
and very, 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 very few redeeming folk there.
I love how good that show is, and it's a departure from his normal, as we said, kind of smart aleck sense of humor. And he directed and did the whole thing, man. It's a great show.
I don't know if they're making a fourth season, but I kind of hope they don't.
I may not have seen 3.
What?
Was there 3? Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
okay,
dude.
Anyway. We should probably talk some fantasy football.
I'm really bad at TV lately.
Ends? I'm really bad at TV lately.
You don't know how the third season ends?
I may have seen it and forgot. I reserved to...
Well, spoiler alert, the daughter dies.
Don't tell me... dang it. You can't put... I have to edit that out now.
That's not really what happens, man.
Oh, okay. Good.
That's like when I ruined
That would have gotten me. That would have gotten me. That
what was
sounds
it,
like
the
something that
first
would happen.
season of Dexter for you? You're like, yeah, I'm watching Dexter. I'm like, oh yeah, so you remember? So his sister's the ice truck killer, and you're like, why would you tell me that? And I let you believe it for like until
the
you
whole
got
show.
to that point in the show, and you're like, you're a jerk.
Yeah. Yep. I distinctly remember that conversation. It was tragic. That was awesome.
All right, so we're here to talk about some fantasy football, not TV shows.
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with our first running back up here. With our first running back, of course, is Alvin Kamara. He was really good this season. He had a nice redemption for himself this year after a really injury-plagued and a dud of a 2019 season. I would like to start out by saying that he scored 340.7 fantasy points. And while we were preparing to start the show here, I looked it up real quick just to kind of see. I was like, man, 340 seems maybe a touch low for like a number one running back. It's really not. I mean, last year Christian McCaffrey was the anomalous. He scored like a 412 points.
Yeah, that was like a LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk type of season.
McCaffrey yeah. But in 2018, like two out of the number one and two running backs both hit 340 points. So that's on par. Like that's a number one running back points right there. So I just wanted to point that out real quick.
And did he not miss one entire game? I thought he did.
I don't believe so.
We can look later. I just off the top of my head, I thought that might have been the case, which makes a little bit of a difference.
Why don't you read off his stats and I'll look it up?
Read off his stat. Okay, and you'll look it up. Gotcha. Yeah, 197 rushing attempts, 932 yards, 16 rushing touchdowns is the big key there, but also the receiving line, 107 targets, 83 receptions, 756 yards, 5 touchdowns. That average off 83 receptions is fine. Usually, you're expecting the running back to average 15 yards per catch or anything because of where they're catching.
Well, when you're getting the ball at the -5, like 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, sometimes
screens and even from wide receiver position screens, he gets those type of screens. Regular screens.
He did miss one game, but it was week 17.
Darn it. Okay, that was my second thought. Was it? I thought it was within the 1 through 16. Anyway, I was wrong.
And those of you who checked out our previous video. Our first episode, actually, some of these numbers are going to be a little different because they're based on 17 weeks, not the 16 weeks that we did that show on. It was just easier to just go off of 17.
Yep.
To be quite honest.
Fair. Still an average. Yeah. So,
I mean, I would have liked to have seen him hit 1,000, but when you supplant that with over 750 receiving yards,
exactly.
Yeah, that you're still over 1,600, yards from scrimmage. So, and 0 fumbles too, man. 0.
And quite frankly, scoring opportunities. Like you'll find you get better running back production on better teams and better offenses. I mean, it sounds dumb, but it's worthy of mentioning, especially when you're trying to decide parsing between these top 5, top 6, top 12 guys. You need these tiebreakers. You need this. Well, Kamara plays for the Saints still. And I touch on that a little bit in my notes here. I go on to say whether Breeze is back or not. I think that's something we need to keep an eye on this offseason. On one hand, we were concerned about the targets. On the other hand, with Taysom Hill, they really kind of turned that around at the end of the year. Today, I think we have a playoff game with the Saints. Am I right? So, hey, it's just kind of something that we, in your recent memory, watching Breeze play again with Kamara. But remember, there may be a decision to be made in the offseason. He's a 40-plus-year-old quarterback, and he could win a ring. And I thought he would have 2 years ago, I think it was. They really had a good chance. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Kamara. He is my 101 if you make me choose today, which I don't have to, but if I did, that's what I would go with. For whatever it's worth, Breeze was 21st on PFF rankings. Hill was 27th, but of course Hill was 13th in that run rating that they give the quarterbacks, and he had 8 rushing touchdowns. For whatever that's worth, that could be a negative or a positive with Kamara. He could be taking rushing touchdowns from Kamara, or he could be, providing more scoring opportunities if he plays well.
Chris.
What?
Oh, never mind. You rolled it back around. I'm like, we're not talking about quarterbacks here, but you rolled it back around. I gotcha.
Yeah, just because he'll be on the field, I don't know what to expect in 2021. Because I think he might be their quarterback.
I think it's going to be Jameis Winston being Drew Brees and Taysom Hill being Taysom Hill.
Okay. They have to re-sign Jameis, I believe.
Yeah, but it's not going to. He's not going to get starting quarterback money.
You don't think yeah, because he didn't start enough.
I think if frankly, if Jameis is smart, he'll take another deal, maybe for 10 to 15 million
to go elsewhere.
Prove it year. And I mean, you could even do like a baseball style contract with like a team option or something after that first year, you know,
get creative with the contract language is what you're saying. So he can stay in New Orleans and be the starter. Yeah. Now, of course, folks, this is us speculating that Brees is done. Nobody knows anything, but
it sounds like he's going to be.
Does it? Have you heard anything particular?
All signs point to Brees retiring. There's lots of the bushes are starting to become a quiet whisper, a loud whisper.
Okay, well said. And that's why I brought up what I did. So, just otherwise,
right, let's move on to number 2 here. Mm-hmm. Number 2, of course, is Derrick Henry. As you can see from the slide here, over 2,000 yards, great. 17 touchdowns, great. The downside of Derrick Henry is you are not getting a lot of work in the receiving game.
That is ugly.
But frankly, the one number that really stands out to me, at least, is that 378 attempts.
Yep.
378.
That whole line, 2,027 yards, 17 touchdowns. I mean, we just got finished with Kamara with 16 touchdowns. Usually you regress when you have a statistical spike up,
But when you have almost 390 touches versus Kamara's, let's see here,
more like 300, I bet.
220.
Yeah,
for reals.
Yeah, it's night and day, man. I would worry too.
So there's almost 390 here, and he has what was it? The number is something like 640 attempts over the last 2 seasons. So
the NFL,
the dude has some wear on his tires.
Yeah, and while you're at it, Google his college statistics. No, not literally you, folks at home. Google his college statistics and add that on top of it too. Now he took a little bit of time off in his first rookie year. He still carried it. Don't get me wrong.
2 seasons were not bad.
Okay, so that was when Murray, I think, was still producing quite a bit, and he took more of a secondary role. So,
boy, I'm glad you said Murray, because I was going to go Chris Johnson.
Nope, I don't think they ever played together.
Well, that's so wrong.
Wouldn't that be an interesting 1-2 punch, though, man? Whew. And I think Henry in the real NFL would benefit more from just a slight lightening of the load. I don't want to upset fantasy managers, but gosh, man, just if you want to see this guy play well for longer, I think you need to pull back the reins a little bit.
Yep. I mean, like I said, I mean, the receptions is maybe what's going to drag his overall value in like a full PPR league down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with this kind of what he did last year and this year, I'm going to definitely be bumping him down my board based on just his last 2 years of usage. And statistically, most guys that get that kind of usage do not have a really great follow-up season. I mean, 390 touches.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had 2 other points I wanted to touch on related to that. Yeah, before you finish.
I mean, that's about all I got. I'll still have probably Derrick Henry in my top 5, but he will probably be like 5.
Right. Yeah. My comment was going to be about the both the receptions and that rushing stat line is, like you just said, expect a statistical regression. You don't run for 2,000 yards every year. That's why it's hard to do. And furthermore, the receptions and whatnot, like, it takes you that many rushing statistics to be the number 2 fantasy back. If those rushing statistics regress and you continue to catch, what was it, 19 balls or 19 targets?
Yep, 19.
So
31 targets, 19 receptions.
I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan.
I'd like to point out that so Kamara became number 1 on 220 touches. I'm sorry, that's not right at all. 220. That's 270. 270. Sorry.
Point still
My
proven,
math.
but
I'm doing it in my head. Give me a
it did
break.
seem low, but point still stands.
So,
I think.
okay, so 270, and then
South of
100,
300.
and then 110 more touches. Here comes Derrick Henry, and it just. Let's move on to number 3 here.
Gotcha. Well said.
We got Dalvin Cook, of course. Dalvin Cook had a great season. He missed about a game and a half he had a groin injury. It was a little bit more of a blow because there was a bye week right after that game and a half. So it was just kind of like, oh man, I'm missing Dalvin Cook for 2.5 games, 2 full games. But man, I made the joke when he came back after their I believe it was an week 8 bye, that they just fed him the ball and he was doing that was his like 4 touchdown game, I believe.
Yep. I was about to say 50-point game or something like that.
Yeah, I was made the joke that he was like, all right, coach, you got to give me the ball. I got to make up for lost time. And he's like, okay, whatever. Here you go.
Got to bring my
back up. So 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns on the season. That's great. 312 attempts. Not exactly happy with that for a guy that has had some injury problems. Usually minor, but still.
Yeah, I'd like to see him work in the receiving game and a little bit less in the rushing game.
A little more work. He had 54 targets,
No, it's not. No, it looks great. I'm just saying, well, maybe you're right. Maybe just decline in touches overall. But
well, part of that, his attempts and everything could have gone up because Alexander Mattison did miss a few games, especially on the back half of the season. So I think that led to some of Dalvin Cook's increase in work because, Alexander Mattison, like that one game that Cook missed, he didn't look all that great, but he's still a part of that team's offense. They still want to use him. They don't want Cook to. I don't know if they want Cook to go out and get these kind of numbers again next year.
I would agree with you. I would like to see
as the numbers. They want the offense production, but they don't want that kind of workload going his way.
Exactly. Less usage, more efficiency. I think is what they want to see out of their backs.
I feel like if you're drafting Cook as the number 3 running back off the board this coming draft season, I think you're drafting him at his peak value. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we say like before the 2020 season, I was like, yeah, if you draft Lamar Jackson and the second round, he has to duplicate what he did,
which was an MVP caliber season, which you don't do every season. I don't care who you are. Yeah, exactly.
Could Dalvin Cook replicate this? Yeah, he could. He's very, very, very talented. I think it's going to end up being more like, I didn't put any receiving yards on here. I left that out. My bad. I'm gonna look at it being more like a 1,600 total yard season for Cook. Not it's probably closer to almost 2,000 combined yards here.
Right.
Let me look that up real quick.
Sure.
We keep talking about Cook here. I'll look it up real quick. It won't take me long.
No problem. I think it's a great offense. I want a piece of it. This would be a great piece to have.
It's a little over 1,900 yards combined
total. 1,900 scrimmage yards total. Okay.
Yeah, so I could easily see that being more like 1,600 yards next season. Maybe it could easily still be 16 touchdowns, but yeah.
To your point, I think we need to be worried about exactly the team taking a little bit of the load off of them. Statistical regression. I do have a little bit of problem when it comes to who I'm taking out of the top 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, because as I just mentioned, with Henry, I might have to have Cook at 3 or 4 or 2. I'm not sure yet, and we'll get into that in the off season, but still, that's a lot of touchdowns, man.
He belongs in that top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I would not question that at all right at this point.
You know who doesn't belong in the top 5 next year? Our number 4 running back, David Montgomery.
Thank you. I switched right as you did that.
I cannot stress enough. Okay, let's just start at the top here. So Dalvin Cook's our number 3 running back with 315 points, right?
Yep.
Our number 4 quarterback has 237. That's a huge gap between the 3 and 4. Huge.
I mean, if you want to talk about a tier, that's a teardrop, from none other.
At least a tier. Like, oh man.
We'll get into it. More like 2 tiers because we're neither of us high on this guy. I was typing
and
up
I feel
today.
like you're going to be
uh,
shedding at least 2 tiers if you draft David Montgomery in the first round next year.
Yeah, I was
I mean,
astonished to
it's
see him here at 4. I was surprised.
so part of his production is from the lack of Tariq Cohen. That's part of it. That's
68
how he ended
targets.
up with
Yep.
68 targets and 54 receptions.
Mhm,
There was no
mhm.
Tariq Cohen. Tariq Cohen got a little hurt in. Let me see here.
And I think they made it apparent when Tariq Cohen was healthy that they want to use Tariq Cohen. Same thing with last year.
Well, they coexisted though, because they were using Tariq Cohen as like a wide receiver a lot too, even though
True.
he's super tiny.
True.
I'm sorry, I don't have it written
What,
down here.
what
Oh,
are you looking for?
sorry, he did play with Tariq Cohen in 3 games. So yeah, so 13 more games of no Tariq Cohen, 14 technically.
16, yeah.
Montgomery, he only missed 1 game this season, so that's not bad. But
Durability's good.
it really was a tale of two halves. He was really ineffective at first, and he was really great in the back half. But I mean, like, okay, so listen to this. Weeks 1 through 9, 10.6 points. That's what I expect out of David Montgomery, really, because he's not that great. They had
But
a
I think
week
it's
11
important to
bye.
mention 10.6 isn't like, I mean, that's got a place. That's got a value. It's just not up here at 4.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
But then in week 11 bye, and weeks 12 through 16, almost 24 points per game. Why was that? Let's look at this. He faced Green Bay in week 10, which they missed. I'm sorry. What?
Green Bay is
I'm sorry. And they ranked 13th. Sorry, I'm looking here. Oh, at week 11, they got Detroit. They're 20. They were ranked by the end of the season. Detroit was 28th against the run. Week 14 was the Texans, last against the run. Week 15, Minnesota, 27th against the run. Week 16, Jacksonville, 30th against the run. Yeah, this is why David these are really bad rushing defenses that he went up against.
And who's the quarterback during those games? Does it matter? No, it doesn't, because they're both bad. I think
it was Mitch Trubisky, actually.
I'm just saying, I think their game plan is just about every game is to play defense and run the ball because they want to take the ball out of their quarterback's hands, be it Foles or
terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Be it Foles or Trubisky. So volume is the key. And game plan.
But it's not. But even then, it's not even. It's not. It's barely over 300 touches.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's not even that much volume when you look at those. When you look at the top 3, and what he did with that volume too is just like, yeah, it's almost 4 yards a carry if you really take stock into that. But
how about you put one of these 3 guys ahead of him in that same situation with that same teams with that same matchups for however many weeks that was? I'm sorry, 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, they would average more than 4. Derrick Henry would run through the record books probably, like he did.
He would have wrecked people.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a really good point. You take those elite guys and you put them in up against on this same team up against those same defenses, and they're going to do a lot more than what
bad quarterback with the
did.
same ton of carries. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've seen it. So yeah, he's going to be, and I think a lot of the fantasy community might come around, and he might be suppressed in some rankings.
Oh, I've already seen articles when I just look at like news for like just general news.
Way too early preseason rankings.
Because it's part of my algorithm where like I look at a lot of fantasy football stuff that articles pop up, and they're like, yeah, David Montgomery is just he's a mirage or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I know I'm not being necessarily the first guy on this bandwagon here.
No, yeah, that's not what I was insinuating, but yeah,
no, I'm just making it known that like it's my opinion is original, or it's my own opinion. That's what makes it original, I guess. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of other people saying the same stuff out there.
Yeah. Even in this,
he only lost 1 fumble, but unless the Bears get a better quarterback and B, fix their offensive line, even then, David Montgomery's not going to end up next year as a number 4 running back.
No, there's guys.
I don't see it. Like he doesn't have the athletic ability to do that. And I'm not trying to take away from him because like. He played at Iowa State, which, yeah, they're a rival of Iowa, which, I happen to live in the University of Iowa area. But, still, like, I want him to succeed. I just don't think that he necessarily is the number. He's not the number 4 running back next
No,
year. I
I'm
bet anyone
completely on
money.
your side there. Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I think we're good. I don't know if I have a whole lot else on him, but
No.
that's something. Anyway, it'll come up later
Let's
if I
move on
remember.
to our number 5 running back, which you wouldn't know because they didn't put number 5 next to Aaron Jones. This is his name, but our number 5 running back is Aaron Jones. He only had 201 attempts this season for a little over 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's definitely down from his 2019 numbers, but I
I have
think
no problem
everyone
with that
kind of
though.
expected
Yeah.
this is
Mhm.
kind of what people were expecting from Aaron Jones this year. His ADP was certainly reflected that too. Um, why don't you say a minute, a thing or two about him while I look up his
I'm on
ADP
your
real quick.
side there.
It
I
won't take me
think
long.
9 touchdowns is a fine number to be at, considering the statistical regression that was bound to happen from his great 2019.
Where
For
he had
the
like 18 touchdowns, I believe.
yeah,
It was an insane number.
yeah, wasn't his receptions also crazy? Now he's gonna put up
Mm-hmm.
good reception numbers every season. He's one of the better backs in the league in terms of targets,
Catching the ball.
receptions.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, he's used very well in that capacity.
he
1,100 yards to
he was
200
middle of the second
attempts.
round this year, which is what I thought he was. But
Yeah, and
whatever.
1,104 yards out of 201 attempts. That's a darn good average. So
Yes, it is.
he's part of one of the best offenses in the league with one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Who knows if he will be next year though?
That's a good point. That's what I was going to get to
He is
next.
not under a contract. He is, as of right now, he is not under a contract with the Packers for next season.
And they do like
I
to
don't
use
think
multiple
Jamal Williams
guys.
is either, actually,
I think you're right. That sounds very familiar. Yep, I
because
think
they were the same draft class.
And you did see AJ Dillon sprinkled in, especially yesterday during the playoffs.
That game when Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams both missed, or Aaron Jones missed it and Jamal, what was it?
Dillon, AJ Dillon did.
AJ Dillon was featured and
Okay.
he looked pretty good. It was
Yeah.
against Jacksonville, I believe.
He's a bigger
so
back.
it's
Yeah.
so it was kind of like, well, but I mean, he looked pretty solid doing it. So
He's also
because
the
I
type of
mean,
back that can play
even
a
a bad
role.
running
Yeah.
back can look bad against a bad defense. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. It's like it's one of those things that's just a check mark. Oh, did you produce against bad defense? Good. Now you're right. You're where I thought you were. You were a reasonably talented dude. He's
sure.
also he's ideal for playing a role, a goal line, short yardage role. So we know Green Bay is going to use different backs. But I think we also know that Aaron Jones is the most talented out of them all, and you do get the receiving work there. So that's important to kind of separate himself. Plus, he scores from all over the field. So even those 9 touchdowns is a sign of that, because you look at what he did in 2019, and it was, well, I don't know, darn near 20 touchdowns if memory serves. So he's going to be one of those guys that's going to be above Montgomery easily in my rankings, assuming, like Josh said, he sticks around.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, if he went to the Dolphins and they treated Aaron Jones like they were treating Myles Gaskin.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
But if they treated Aaron Jones like the Packers have been with, making him kind of the feature back, but it being more like a 70-30 split or whatever with, like, say, Myles Gaskin. That's a really good team. Like, that would be a really good destination for Aaron Jones to go. That their offensive line is getting better. They have at least competent young quarterback. They have some other weapons the defense can't just focus on Aaron Jones. It'd be a really good destination for him. I don't want to speculate.
I don't like it because I love Gaskin, but I love where your mind went in terms of a situation where if you're a manager of Aaron Jones, like a dynasty, or you're drafting this coming August, and you're like, well, I don't know, and he went to somewhere like Miami. Yeah, I feel good about that. I feel good.
If he went to the Jets, I'd be like, I'm sorry, man.
I don't feel good about that. No, I do not.
All right, let's move on to number 6, which is number 1 in my heart. Well, not really, but he's like number 2. Because Christian McCaffrey's number 1 in my heart. I love him so much.
It's your hometown team,
well, not hometown, but it's number 6, Jonathan Taylor. I don't live in Indianapolis, dude.
I know, but for lack of a better term, your favorite team.
So, Jonathan Taylor here. He's got a little David Montgomery in him here. And just listen, just hear me out here. He has over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns on the season. He had a real rough season getting there, though.
Yep.
Why did he end up with this many? Well, let me tell you, sir. His last 5 opponents were Houston, Las
Ooh.
Vegas, Pittsburgh, and Jacksonville. And sorry, Houston was in there twice. So Houston, Las Vegas, Houston, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville.
Pittsburgh's defense really kind of fell apart there, didn't they?
Exactly. I was just going to say that. I was going to say, Pittsburgh's defense was really, really good at the beginning of the year, but it was like a really slow domino effect of injuries that really kind of added up to, by the end of the season, Pittsburgh's rushing defense was not.
I was going to say, in particular versus the run. Yep.
And so Jonathan Taylor, he's
an enigma to me right now.
So I didn't get a lot of chances to watch the Colts this season because I don't have the NFL Sunday ticket because, whatever. But beginning of the season compared to end of the season, yes, they were against bad run defenses, but he wasn't just getting the ball and running straight ahead. There was times where he would actually just do kind of like the Le'Veon Bell little pause and then kind of let the hole open and then he would hit it. It wasn't just get ball, run fast and hard, it was get ball, let the play kind of develop and then go. He doesn't have the explosiveness that Le'Veon Bell used to have.
Yep.
He certainly has more explosiveness than Le'Veon Bell has now, but that's a story for a different day.
Good point.
I don't necessarily want Jonathan Taylor to be my number one running back like he was to some people this year, because some people just went wide receiver, tight end, or
I did it in a
wide receiver Lamar Jackson, and then Jonathan Taylor.
It happened for sure. Yeah,
you definitely want some solid stabilization in your running back stable there. Not to use the word stable twice, but
while we're talking about Colts,
I think that exactly.
And that's it for puns. I think he's going to be really good. And that's it for puns at 1 o'clock.
I think he's going to be really good next year. Part of the reason why he did struggle this year was the Colts offensive line did struggle in run
blocking.
And I mean, their PFF rating was down to 25 at one point. So yeah, and Nyheim Hines is going to be there to take some usage away, and I honestly feel like there's going to be some games where it's going to be a Nyheim Hines game. And it won't necessarily be because they're down. It just might be because Hines is just being a little bit more effective than Taylor for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I
agreed.
Taylor can catch the ball. He only missed 3 of his targets, so he can catch the ball. They just didn't really use him like that all that
often. His catch rate was amazing. Yeah. But you have Hines on the field. And you were just touching on it. You're going to have to deal with that, and Hines is the better receiving back.
But how many NFL teams really feature one running back anymore besides the Titans?
Yep, and we're going to see. We'll talk about some other guys in these next couple of shows that might have been staples.
I don't know. I don't see Taylor being in the first round, but I definitely see him being maybe a solid RB2 next season. I don't think that Jordan Wilkins is going to be much of a factor like he was at some points this season. I could be wrong, and it could just be hometown love for Jonathan Taylor, but I was watching him at Wisconsin. He was really good there too. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but usually when I have an eye on a college running back, they usually have produced in the NFL.
I'm sorry, did you refer to somebody else at Wisconsin currently? Who is that?
I have no idea.
Oh, I thought you were talking about somebody else besides Taylor.
They played 4 or 5 games this season.
Oh, yeah, I don't know either. I'm sorry. I thought you were referring to somebody else besides Taylor from Wisconsin.
No.
Gotcha.
But I could. Talk about Melvin Gordon. He was great for a while.
He was. And that's kind of one of the, I don't want to pay too much credence to it, but there's, people think that Wisconsin can't produce good NFL running backs because, they're
Monty
so dominant. Ball. Yeah, another good example, actually. So
I don't know. Ron Dane.
I'd like to give Taylor more opportunity to prove that wrong. I'll put it that way. That's all that really needs to be said. He was third in the NFL in rushing yards, but to your point, it was against some bad defenses for sure.
Bad D's at the end.
I'd like to see him. I'm thinking a high-end RB2.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see where his ADP ends up.
You think he's going to be too highly valued? Is that what your worry is?
I think so. I think I'm going to end up missing out on him, and
I don't want to pay a first for him.
I don't necessarily don't like that, but yeah,
I feel like this would be a wide receiver heavy draft. We'll see.
Let's move on to our number 7 guy. Number 7, James Robinson. Number 7 on our list, and number 1 in Chris's heart.
Is that true? No, that's not true.
I don't know. I just made that up.
It is not true, but I will expound upon him.
Well, why don't you give us some James Robinson love? He certainly has earned it this season.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind for me, interesting, the timing of the show, the recording of the show, is that Urban Meyer is signed on the dotted, or is all but signed on the dotted line with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence, and maybe James Robinson. Yeah, I'll take that. But let's tap the brakes a little bit, because I don't know if Meyer wants to bring in his own, probably more athletic guy. Maybe we're looking at a committee. Maybe Tim Tebow comes out of retirement and plays halfback. I don't know. Anything's possible. But seriously, who knows? Who knows with Robinson?
Don't say that.
I know. Who knows with Robinson? I think he showed us and the NFL a lot, but at the same time, he's very expendable. And with the team bringing in a new regime like this, I worry Robinson will be left wondering what happened to his volume role, because that's what it was, folks. He got a ton of volume. Maybe he played himself into a nice contract elsewhere. There's a lot of variables here, but he can produce, especially in a PPR. Moreover, in a full PPR.
I don't see Jacksonville just cutting him. Like, yeah, they're paying him next to nothing.
No, but you can get talented running backs in the draft relatively cheaply. Especially if you're talking.
It was his first season.
Yeah, I know, but we've seen it happen before. All I'm saying is he's not the most athletic guy.
No, he's not. Okay, so thank you for at least recognizing that. Because I thought you were going to come out and just gush and pour
that's why I was
over James Robinson. I'm like,
about the being
he's not the quickest guy, dude.
No, he's not. But he's serviceable out of the backfield. But again, this was a struggling team.
See what he can do with a quarterback that actually can throw the ball well.
Exactly.
And maybe this disparity between targets and receptions kind of shrinks a little bit.
I agree, because I think he could absolutely be more efficient. I think he is a good runner. I just think,
because technically a target in the NFL is the ball has to be within 5 yards of you.
Yeah. That's why I tried to place both sides of the fence here. I think
how many of those targets actually count? I think how many of those were actually catchable?
Well, exactly. And how many more would he get on a good team? Be it Jacksonville improves with the new coaching staff, or he goes elsewhere.
Josh Jacobs is our number 8 guy. How did you feel about Josh Jacobs coming into the season?
I thought he was a rich man's David Montgomery. That makes sense.
That's
kind of a good way to put it.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah. Now, I'll admit my opinion has changed a little.
I really like that, man.
Yeah. Do you like that moving forward? Is that still how you feel about him?
I think so.
I might be on the higher end, but it was my catchphrase, so I'll embrace it.
No, that's great. Dude, that's really
exactly
awesome.
how I felt.
I've never heard that before, and that is really great.
It's underwhelming is the term that comes to mind. So I kind of rode with that, but I think he turned my head a little bit this year. I'll put it mildly. If that makes sense.
I mean, his so they everyone was thinking that he was going to get an increased work in the receiving game, which he did. Like his rookie year, he got like 18 receptions, I think, and he got bumped up to 33.
Mm-hmm.
I think people were thinking that he was going to hit more like 40 60s. Or 50. I didn't ever really see that. I think this stat line right here is right about where Josh Jacobs ends up next year too.
And then that would make that phrase 100% correct. I would agree. I would agree that if that's what happens, he's kind of just a guy, maybe a little better than mediocre, because like I said,
above average talent, but like not the greatest situation.
Yeah.
Whereas David Montgomery is an average talent in a bad situation.
Yeah, and I don't have his 2019 numbers in front of me, but I bet we see a steady incline trend of production, like we just touched on in the passing game. So that's kind of why I'm on the higher end. I think he's been. I think given the opportunity, I think what's his name? Gruden wants to run the ball. I think he wants to feature a guy.
Right.
I think he likes to throw the ball to a guy out of the backfield.
But they didn't really quite feature him all that much.
I agree, but I'm talking about next year.
He ended up with 45 targets and 33 receptions, but
if we see another
times where there was actually like chunks where he was coming off the field for forgive me, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think they signed another receipt because they already had a couple of receiving backs in their stable behind Jacobs, and then I felt like they signed another relatively well-known receiving back right before in August, maybe.
I don't remember who it was.
But I agree that it didn't look as great as we'd hoped, but I think if you see more usage next year in the passing game, then we get closer to that 50 or 60 number in targets and receptions.
I wonder if that touchdown number comes down just a touch, but the yardage goes up just a little bit.
Yeah.
So in the end, you're ending up with right around that 215 to 230 points per by the end of the year.
I'd feel better. Yeah.
I think if you draft Josh Jacobs as a number 8 running back off the board, I think you're going to be fine with him. Maybe he's your RB2, maybe he's your RB1. I wouldn't like him as my RB1, but
I'd love him as your RB2.
I'd be okay with it.
Yeah. I think we're more or less on the same page. I'm just leaning towards a better year and then maybe a better outlook on him, big picture.
I really like that phase.
Phrase, right? Yeah, that's good stuff.
Rich man's David Montgomery. That's great. Let's move on to number 3, and in my heart, and number 9 on our list, and that is Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb here. He missed 4 games this season, and still ended up as the number 9 running back. 190 attempts for just over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns.
Speaking of efficiency, what's that? 5 yards a carry? Better, slightly better.
A little bit more than that, actually.
Yeah,
it's more than 5 yards a carry.
Yep.
What's it?
I was just saying, yeah, you're right, because it's a little less than 200 and a little more than 1,000.
Yeah. And this is also, I mean, he barely did it by 0.2 points here, as you'll see in our next slide here. But he outscored He outscored Kareem Hunt, just barely. You might as well just call him a tie. But this is a guy who missed 4 games. Kareem Hunt played in all of them.
0.2
points. Sign me up for some Nick Chubb. This is a guy I think that deserves to be really. People need to start thinking about him being in the middle of the first round. Well, even with Kareem Hunt there,
we keep hitting on guys that were. How do I put it? Watch out for the value next year. Don't draft David Montgomery as the number 4, et cetera, et cetera. Well, necessarily, some guys need to be pushed up if we're pushing these guys down, and this is a perfect example of a guy that needs to be pushed up. That will not finish at 9, given health, of course.
Yeah, but we don't factor health into this unless it's.
Yeah.
We'll get into later on in the offseason. We'll get into health when we start talking about Saquon Barkley. But other than that, I don't really know of any of these guys if we're going to have any health concerns about them. Anyone on this list? No, none of them. I mean, James Robinson's a rookie
for the show today. The top 12.
Yeah,
probably right. Yeah.
Maybe Dalvin Cook.
But he showed us that this year with durability, missing a game and a half and playing through.
Maybe Josh Jacobs. He's missed some time.
True.
Maybe, I don't know.
True.
I don't know what else to say about Nick Chubb other than the dude is really, really, really good, and that Browns offensive line is built for both him and Kareem Hunt. To succeed.
Somehow I had missed that they both rushed for 1,000 yards. That's crazy.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. What did somebody? I could have sworn I was watching football the other day.
Kareem Hunt has over 1,100 all-purpose yards.
Must have been scrimmage yards.
Must have been. Yeah. That's a thing, and that's not really part of Chubb's game, or that's certainly not what they use.
Yeah. Before you moved on, I was going to touch on receiving for Chubb. Yeah.
He's more the bruiser. Can catch the ball. I mean,
I think
16 out of 18 targets.
Yeah.
He's just not. He's not going to that's more Kareem Hunt's job. So and let him have it. If Chubb's going to put up these kinds of numbers, then let him have it.
Especially if you can keep him healthy and keep him around that 200 attempts rushing. That is 200 attempts. And
dude.
I mean that from a perspective of as a fantasy manager, you don't want to lose him to injury. And yeah. So he's a great player. I agree. Very efficient on the ground.
And a lot of people, okay. And so to kind of segue into our number 10 guy, as I already kind of alluded to, or more or less came out and said, it's Kareem Hunt here. And a lot of people were just saying, well, what if Nick Chubb gets hurt and he misses a significant time? Well, he missed significant time.
And look at their
Kareem
attempts.
Hunt just wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, Hunt had more attempts, less yards. I mean,
you look at a points per game basis, taking out the 4 games that Chubb played in, he was vastly superior to Kareem Hunt. Just if you look at it that way, Kareem Hunt they're not the same guy, which is great. Like they both had their roles. I think in a regular season, maybe the number of targets and receptions maybe would have, like, that gap would have been a little bit closer, because at times Baker was not playing that great. So
absolutely,
51 targets, great. How many of those targets were catchable? That
Agreed.
sort of thing.
Yeah, because that catch rate isn't all that great. 38 catches.
I mean, Kareem Hunt's he's at a little over 4 yards a carry, whereas Chubb was over 5. That makes a world of difference right there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the attempts.
So on the flip side of this, like, what happens next season if Kareem Hunt gets hurt and Nick Chubb ends up being the feature guy?
Exactly. What if you even if it's just a handful of weeks? What if you tack
he's going to be like
Vesuvius,
dude? It's going to be insane.
Yeah. That's to your point. That's what people should be talking about. You're right. He's going to get vaulted up there, and I think we will see some hype in the offseason and the round draft time. But to Josh's point, I think you probably need to pay up for it. I think if you have a top 5 pick, this guy is most definitely on your radar.
Kareem Hunt?
No, Chubb.
Oh, I thought.
Sorry. I'm still back and forth with him. So.
Oh, right on. Anyways,
I mean, no.
It's hard to talk about one and not talk about the other.
Exactly. And I think they got him for 2 years.
Like in a few minutes when we get to Zeke, you can't talk about Tony Pollard whatsoever. So it's not allowed.
It's a different show, right?
I'll edit that right out, and it'll just be blank. You're like, what is Chris just swearing? And be like, no, he's just talking about Tony Pollard.
Yeah, instead of cutting it, you make it like one obnoxiously long beep.
Yeah.
It was some
no, I'll just beep out Tony Pollard. So every time you're like Tony Pollard, you're like beep beep.
Who is this theoretical running back that Chris is talking about? Anyway,
what else do we have to say about Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt here? I don't think Kareem Hunt's going to end up being the number 11 or the number 10 quarterback off the board.
Yeah, I think we all want to see as a fantasy community Chubb's receiving work go up a little bit.
I think he's going to get pushed down because he did. I mean, so like
they have him under contract for another year, right?
And he was just like, at one point he's like, I feel like Kareem Hunt scored more points when Nick Chubb was in there, and that wasn't entirely true, but
it's just he was a great grab if you didn't already have him on your roster. Like, what week was that? Anyway, whatever point of the season it was like you felt that value because you didn't have to pay up for Hunt. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. And he's
all right. Let's move on to number 11 here. Then this is probably my biggest surprise here. He's probably my biggest surprise on this list, and that's Nyheim Hines.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to first, before we get into Nyheim Hines, that there's one number on this slide here that you can see, and it's the 370 return yards. He's the first guy on this list that is getting return yards. You'll see more of it on next week's show. Like we talked about at the top, I really like that, throwing that into fantasy football.
What is that? 37 points.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So that's where it, like you said, got to be mentioned. It does bring some of these guys up as you start getting to the double-digit ranking finishes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but this is also Nyheim Hines. I mean, he's worth mentioning anyways. Maybe not necessarily in this show, or will finish as number 11 next year. In fact, I'm almost positive he won't. But I mean, he only had 89 attempts, 380 yards. Where he got his value was in the pass catching game. 76 targets, 63 receptions. Only 482 yards. I would have liked that number to have been a little bit higher on that kind of volume. But yeah, man, He's a guy that like people really need to. I know in our keeper league, I drafted him really late just because I missed out on Jonathan Taylor, which thankfully I did because he would have really kind of torpedoed my team at
Play
the
the
beginning of the
odds.
season.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I was like, well, I mean, Naeem Hines, Philip Rivers likes to throw the ball to the running back, so and I don't know if Philip Rivers is going to be back. It kind of sounds like he might be done. Who knows? Hard to say.
Who knows at this point?
Yeah, but if Phil Rivers is still around, I think Naeem Hines will still be relevant. I just don't know what the Colts are going to be doing at quarterback this offseason.
I think because of the. Go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe they'll go with Jacoby Brissett again. I really don't think so. I think they want him as their number 2. They want him as their backup.
Rivers obviously loves to throw into the backs. Let's get that out of the way. And that's kind of your point there. But I also think because of the coaching staff, you'll see running back usage in the passing game, almost regardless of who's at quarterback.
I think so too.
So I'd still feel good about Hines' stat line and the receptions. Yes, I agree. I think his receiving yardage will go up a bit. But I think that 50-60 target catch thing, it's okay. I was just saying that 50-60 target catch area, I think it's what we can expect year in and year out because he's a great running back, and it doesn't kill Taylor necessarily. Could, but not necessarily.
I think what number could go up here is his attempts and yards. I think that there was definitely some times where it was just like, oh, Jonathan Taylor's just not really working, but then Naeem Hines comes in and he was just effective,
Well, he had fresh legs. He had a burst.
I guess. I'm not really sure. It was just whatever worked. Yeah. I mean, hey, and sometimes it was just really obvious. So like, well, Taylor's getting nothing out of this, and all of a sudden Hines comes in and he's just all over the place. I'm like, okay. I think he has a little bit more burst and maybe might be a touch faster than Jonathan Taylor. I'm kind of wondering if Taylor's combine speed, his 40 speed, was just like the fastest he's ever ran in his life.
I think he trained like crazy, like they all do, for that number. I still think it's an indicative of him being an athletic guy.
No, he's definitely fast.
I just think visually, I think he was second guessing things. I think he was, like you said, hesitating, and then doesn't have that extra gear.
And this, I think this kind of deserves a little discussion in the fact that everyone was just saying that the wide receivers this year, the rookie wide receivers, were going to be trash because there was barely an off season. When actually the rookie wide receivers were really great, and the rookie running backs weren't all that great.
Nope. Yep. It was almost the opposite. I agree.
So some of these guys that didn't have a very good rookie season as far as running backs, like Jonathan Taylor, I don't know about Allaire. He doesn't look all that great.
I said he didn't. Yeah, no, you said he didn't have a good year. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I don't think he looked very good doing it either.
Nope. He didn't.
Whereas Taylor showed Taylor showed some growth by the end of the season. James Robinson, I mean, he's kind of the exception to the rule here, but yeah, he had a good season. Remind me of some other ones. I'm blanking on some rookies.
Gibson. Second year? No, good first year for Gibson, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He had a slow start, but then got better. He like kind of like Taylor, is that he was just getting the ball and running as hard and as fast as he could, and he kind of slowed it down a little bit and let some blocking take effect. And we'll talk about Gibson more next week. But it kind of just proves my point. DeAndre Swift, he didn't have a very good start, but then towards the end of the season, pretty darn good. Not great, but good.
And we're talking about some struggling teams too at certain points. Obviously, Washington made the playoffs, but at certain points, really struggling with offense and quarterback.
I think as we're ending our list here, and I think we can move on from Hines here, but sure. I think as we're getting towards the bottom of our list, we can start talking. And I'm like, I think that there's going to be some severely undervalued running backs next year, and like a DeAndre Swift, or maybe not Gibson so much, but definitely DeAndre Swift and maybe Gibson to some extent, depending on what they do with their Washington does with their backfield in the offseason. But these guys could definitely go a little under the radar, and you might end up with a really pleasant surprise as your RB2, 3,
Absolutely. One quick thing I want to touch on that kind of goes back to these last handful of guys, and really you could probably just say all running backs. Keep an eye on these offensive lines in the offseason because
Yes,
like
thank you.
Cleveland is a great example. That's why I wanted to stop here and talk about Indy and Cleveland. Is Indy not so much because they had to kind of round into form at the end of the year in terms of running the ball. They did struggle with run blocking, but Cleveland was really solid all year
And
long. But they could get bad.
Sorry to interrupt. Just
Okay.
to prove your point about the Colts,
Mhm.
is that Anthony Costanzo just retired too for the Colts, so they're going to have to find
Plug
a
a hole there.
replacement for him.
That's exactly what I was
And
about to say. Attrition and just fluctuation at offensive line is a thing in the NFL. It's hard to have a great offensive line every year. It's hard. It's really hard.
and Cleveland went out and they grabbed the top run blocking offensive lineman that was in free agency last year, and Jack Conklin, stole him away from the Titans, and it
Yep.
showed.
Showed.
Oh,
That's
man.
what I'm getting at. Is
Man,
whichever
and
way
that was,
the pendulum
and that was one of the
swings.
reasons why I was all
Yeah.
over like Nick Chubb this year.
Yep.
It was just like, dude, Nick Chubb is going to be great, and that was one of the reasons. And
Perfect example.
I'm not to toot my own horn, but I was completely right.
Perfect example. Exactly. Keep your eye
That's
on
what
those
a
things.
great addition can do to an offensive line. Just
Mhm.
one dude can make.
Or on the opposite side of the coin, a great a subtraction. You lose a talented guy. This stuff
Mhm.
fluctuates. Like Dallas managed to maintain it for 2 or 3 years, and then they over the next 2 or 3. Then you turn around and suddenly the cupboard is bare, so to speak. Cleveland. Let's hope Cleveland doesn't go through that. I don't think they will, but I'm just saying.
I don't think so either. I think
Yeah.
they're going to have continuity in their offensive line from this year to next year. If
Washington seemed
memory
to round
serves
into
correct.
shape. They were pretty good. Washington was pretty good at the end of the year. So keep an eye on these important running backs and these important offensive lines.
Let's finish out this RB talk with your boy, number 12 on our list, Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep. So I get the duty of expanding upon our thoughts on Zeke.
Got the duty part right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The poopy. No, I'm just kidding. I'll keep a close eye in the offseason about draft chatter and any offensive line personnel changes in terms of Zeke's role and his contract, because I think we can all agree that he had a bad year. He still finished as an RB1. I mean, it's hard to argue this point, but it's true. Pretty sure he played every single game, but he was still shy of 1,000 yards with 979. So the efficiency was not there. We all know he lost his quarterback. So kind of the knee-jerk reaction is to blame a lot of it.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is that Zeke was averaging a little over 19 points per game with Dak, and once Dak got injured, and maybe it was part of the offensive line getting banged up too, but Zeke's points per game plummeted to like 10, I believe it was.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
that's part of it. Yes, he didn't look very good. I knew you were about to say.
Well, I was just gonna say, is it a bit of both, or is it a coincidence that he was, that happened at the beginning of the year, meaning he looked good with Dak because it was the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then
5, but still,
he starts to wear down. So we can't answer that. Let's be honest, we don't know. But
I know. How do you not know?
How do you not know? I was there meeting with Jerry. No, so that's the theme here with Zeke is keep your ears to the ground for rumors coming out of camp. Don't pay heed to every one of them, but we saw Pollard produce. Zeke could be on the downside
of his, doing it too.
He sure did. We'll get to that in the second show, running backs 13 through 24. But so as a Dallas fan, coming in with a somewhat biased lens, it should tell you something that I'm looking closely at his role in this offseason. I want to see what the offensive coordinator can do with Pollard, and I also manage Zeke in Dynasty, so I have a horse in this race, so to speak. I want to see Zeke return to form, but I have my doubts. That's kind of where I sit with Zeke.
I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt with that, because there were some major offensive line injuries
for sure,
including Dallas,
a very important one in the center.
Take Dak away. I don't know. I'm willing to give him a bit of a pass, a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So a better defense sure would have helped too.
And frankly, if he's fallen to me in the second round, like mid-second round, I'm snatching him up every day of the week. And if I'm wrong, I guess I'm wrong, and it's probably going to torpedo my season a little bit.
I guess that's a concern. RB2 or lost his role entirely. I don't know. I would still lean to RB2. Maybe RB1, like you said, first round. I don't know.
First round, no, but mid second.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what you said. My bad. Yeah.
Give me some Zeke in mid second. But well,
Like
I don't think he's. I
301.
don't know if he's going to
301, you're doing a dance for Zeke, probably.
Yeah, I'm doing a
You
dance.
think that's
and I'm taking my
realistic? You think he
pants.
could fall that far? I think he might.
To third? He
Yeah.
could.
In a small, like, let's say a 10-team league where there's some.
The hate could definitely go that far.
I
It really could.
I think we're on the same page. Yeah. That's it, huh?
All right.
That is
Yeah,
it. I'm all ready to go to the next slide.
That's our that's our top 12 right there.
Well done.
Before I forget, I would like to say that you can check us. You can email us on at amazingffb@gmail.com to get an invite to our Discord server. Trying to build a little community there. We got a few people. They're all pretty solid folk. Yeah, Chris, did I think you wanted to plug something?
Yeah, I think Josh took care of most of the housekeeping with Amazing Fantasy Football. You can also find me eventually here on YouTube with some videos, Hardware Dynasty. And then I do stream, doing it a little bit more often here on twitch.tv/Hardware Dynasty. If you like to watch gaming PC builds, a little bit of gaming, and talk tech and stuff like that.
He just did a stream Friday night. I
Mhm.
joined it once I got home from work, and I ended up doing, instead of research for this show, which I had to cram into yesterday and this morning,
Right.
I ended up having some drinks and I might say a fine time just in the chat while we were trying to distract him while he was doing a PC build and everything.
Yep, it worked, by the way.
I'm not much into the PC tech like I was at one point in my life, but it's also some pretty solid guys that were in the chat.
I think that theme can be carried over to Amazing Fantasy also, is that community is really the name of the game. And whether it be talking fantasy, having a couple of beers, or building gaming PCs, we just want to get together, share knowledge, share information, and have a good time.
Yep, and be decent about it too.
Of course.
There's enough terribleness in everyone's life as it is.
I learned how to ban in a Twitch chat. It's just a click of a button. I just was looking in the wrong spot.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that, like, we go to these things to have a good time and not have the just general terribleness.
Consider it like you're going to dinner with your friends
of the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, check us out. Check us out, the community. We also want, like, our goal is to maybe by the time draft season rolls around, that either people are using it to form leagues, or just maybe trying to find your one person short, because there are other people that do fantasy football. It's not just men.
It'd be great to have some more in our Discord, in our leagues. Absolutely.
Yeah, it got kind of lively towards we started at the end of this past season, but
true.
It'd be really nice to really grow that, and go out and tell your friends. You can, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can check us out in podcast format. We are on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, not Apple Podcasts yet, because they're being stubborn about it, and I don't know what their issue is. We're getting there though.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Just 2020 was a big growing season, and off season 2021 will be even more growth. But by the time we hit August, I'm super excited where the show will be.
Yep. I don't know about Chris, but I'll definitely have some ranks ready come probably end of July, beginning of August.
Oh, that's a good thing to mention. It's quite a ways out, but I'll be working on draft stuff, and by draft I mean NFL draft stuff. So I'll be. I don't have any schedule or any particular things to give you yet, but I'll definitely be putting some content together, obviously with Josh also, and we'll do some draft stuff come around April, I guess.
I'll let him handle that part. I'm
excited about that.
When we get into, I'm just not a big fan of, like, when we get into that kind of like speculation of this would have, this player goes to this team or this team or this like I find it all kind of dull. That's me personally, though. That's me.
Yeah. But it has a lot of meaning in Dynasty because of when their drafts are usually in May.
Sure. And I'm not avidly against it. I don't It's a personal
It's
preference.
best to save the speculation for fantasy rankings and fantasy points till you know their destination. Let's put it that way.
For sure. I'm not. Yeah, we're not going to spend.
Yeah, this is more of a
We're not going to
personnel.
spend 8 shows being playing the
Oh
what if
no,
game.
yeah, this is going to be like I do a couple streams. Maybe I stream on draft night, the first round. I'll put together a couple of shows for.
That'd be super fun.
Yeah, it will be. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
It
But
would
also,
help. It would help.
some
It would
other
help
content.
break up the monotony of the NFL draft because I can't watch it anymore.
Mhm,
Just
mhm.
the talking heads that are on there, and I like seeing like the player like highlight footage and everything.
I've
But
gotten in the habit of muting either ESPN or NFL Network, whichever one you choose or used to choose. I would mute said coverage and I would listen to the draft show, DallasCowboys.com.
oh, that's right. Yeah, I
Which, by the way,
mute
folks,
it,
is great
and
for all draft coverage. It's not
this
biased in
year
that
I would
way.
like to mute it, play some music, and
There you
do
go.
a stream.
Yeah,
'Cause,
so we'll
yeah.
be. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can commit to that. I hope to be streaming on draft night, just that first round, the big one, that big night.
Oh,
I think it's always on a Thursday or Friday.
Thursday. I'd have to take the day off. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what we can
how that
arrange. But also some content, some recordings, some podcasts, some videos around said draft coverage. It'll be
Yes.
fun.
All right. Well, I think that's about all the housekeeping we had.
Mhm.
Got to go do some regular housekeeping. So
There you go.
and until next week, everyone, which we will we will have running backs 13 through 24.
Perfect.
So
thanks everybody.
until next week, tune in on YouTube at Amazing Fantasy Football, of course, or check us out in podcast format. You can just search for Amazing Fantasy Football and
You'll
the
find it.
aforementioned platforms.
It was as easy as that.
Until then, everyone, have a good day. Wear a mask.
Adios.